The human took a railgun shot straight to the chest and laughed. General Zur of the Olin Dominion tightened his grip on the command console, his quills standing stiff. The footage replayed on the main screen, showing the Terran operative, identified as Marcus Hale, staggering slightly as the projectile slammed directly into his sternum. His armor should have shattered. His body should have collapsed. Instead, he steadied himself, exhaled, and chuckled once more. Zur gave a signal. The technician, an anxious, lanky Kvan, hesitated before replaying the footage yet again. The result never changed. Each high-speed impact yielded the same reaction. Hale barely acknowledged the hit, brushing dust from his suit as if he had been struck by nothing more than a breeze. "This defies logic," growled Commander Vannon, the Dominion's foremost expert on Terran warfare. "No species we've encountered could withstand a direct hit from a Dominion railgun, not even with reinforced armor. Perhaps their technology has advanced beyond our projections," the technician suggested nervously. "Some form of kinetic absorption? A personal shield?" Zur narrowed his 4 eyes. "We scanned before the shot. No shields, no energy barriers. Just standard reinforced plating. That impact should have torn him in half." The war room remained silent as they continued watching. On the screen, Hale tapped his chest twice, right where the round had struck, flashing a grin. Then, raising his weapon, a crude ballistic rifle by Dominion standards, he fired with mechanical precision. The Dominion officers stiffened as they watched elite run shock troopers scramble for cover, their energy shields barely holding up under the relentless barrage. Unlike Dominion weaponry, which relied on plasma bursts and guided projectiles, the Terran's firearm hurled simple metal slugs at astonishing speed. Shields designed to withstand energy attacks flickered and failed as the solid rounds tore through them. The Dominion's best warriors, believed to be unstoppable, were being driven back by a lone human. Commander Vannon exhaled sharply through clenched mandibles. "We assumed their technological inferiority made them vulnerable. That assumption may have cost us." Zur remained motionless. He had witnessed Terrans in combat before, brutal, unpredictable, adaptable. Their war doctrine was sheer madness, built on relentless endurance and an unnatural disregard for physical pain. But this, a soldier shrugging off a railgun blast, this was beyond their understanding. "What happened next?" he demanded. The technician swallowed hard. "We don't know. The footage ends there. Our surveillance drone was destroyed. The retrieval team found nothing but bodies. No sign of Hale. He left." Vannon's disbelief echoed through the room. "It seems so." Silence settled, thick, uneasy. The Dominion prided itself on superior tactics and battlefield dominance. They had crushed countless civilizations. Yet, they had never faced an opponent like this. "We need to understand them," Zur finally spoke. "More importantly, we must determine if there are others like him." "I will assemble an analysis team," Vannon said. "We have interrogated captured Terrans before. We can extract information." "No," Zur interrupted. "Not this time. I want direct observation. We must study them in their natural state, see how they train, how they survive injuries that should be fatal." A plan took shape in his mind. The Dominion had relied on brute force for centuries, but brute force alone might not be enough against the Terrans. "Deploy a reconnaissance unit to one of their war camps," he ordered. "I want to see how they create monsters." The Dominion's reconnaissance team was chosen carefully. They were not the shock troopers who had suffered humiliating defeat at the hands of a human, nor were they ordinary intelligence agents who relied on intercepted communications and second-hand reports. These were ghosts, silent, unseen, masters of infiltration and surveillance. If anyone could uncover the truth behind the human anomaly, it was them. They deployed to Terra's third moon, known to humans as Phobos, a desolate rock concealing a covert Terran military training facility. Unlike the Dominion, which built its forces on grandeur and structured regiments, humans forged their warriors in secrecy, within fortified bunkers and underground chambers. The ghosts observed from the shadows, recording every exercise, every seemingly impossible display of endurance. They watched as humans subjected themselves to ordeals no Dominion soldier would ever dare attempt. They ran for hours beneath crushing gravity loads, forced their bodies through punishing obstacle courses designed to break even the strongest minds, and sparred with ruthless intensity. They seemed to revel in pain, driving themselves past logical limits. One of the ghosts, designated Observer 17, captured something particularly unsettling. A human soldier, bare-chested, stood before his unit. A commanding officer handed him a small serrated knife. Without hesitation, the soldier pressed the blade to his own arm and dragged it through flesh, deep enough that even the hardened Olin would recoil. Blood dripped, yet he did not flinch. He merely exhaled and nodded. Another soldier stepped forward and repeated the act. Then another. It was not punishment. It was not desperation. It was a lesson. They do not fear pain, Observer 17 transmitted. They embrace it. General Zur listened intently, his gaze fixed on the holographic projections. He watched their strange rituals, their calculated indifference to suffering. This was no reckless abandon. It was a system, refined through generations of war and hardship. The Dominion's mistake had been assuming humans feared pain as all rational species did. But these beings did not merely endure suffering, they sought it. Another recording arrived, showing a different trial. A group of humans sat in a dimly lit chamber. Before them, a soldier had a small device attached to his arm, an unassuming piece of technology. The moment it activated, his muscles tensed, his face twisted in pain. Olin analysts quickly scanned the device's function, controlled neural overstimulation, a tool designed to induce pain. This is a test, Observer 17 whispered. They are testing their willpower. The soldier endured the torment without making a sound. Seconds stretched into minutes. When the device was removed, he simply exhaled. No breakdown. No collapse. The others around him merely nodded, satisfied. Zur turned to Vannon. How do we fight an enemy that refuses to break? For the first time, Vannon had no answer. The Dominion had always relied on the certainty that every species had limits, that at some point, pain and fear would shatter minds and bodies. But what if no such limit existed for humans? What if suffering and fear were nothing more than inconveniences? Then came the most alarming report yet. Observer 17's team had infiltrated deeper into the training complex. Hidden behind reinforced walls, they discovered a lone human seated before a table lined with advanced equipment. Among the items was a Dominion railgun, the same model that had failed to put down Marcus Hale. He is studying our weapons, Observer 17 reported. Testing them. The human picked up the railgun, analyzing it with what could only be described as fascination. Then, without warning, he turned it on himself. A bolt of energy struck his shoulder. The Dominion observers recoiled, expecting him to fall. He didn't. Instead, he clenched his teeth, rolled his shoulder, and laughed. He wanted to feel it. Observer 17 realized. He wanted to understand it. Zur tightened his claws. The Dominion had always considered themselves the pinnacle of discipline. But what was discipline against creatures who sought suffering as a means of growth? What was strategy against those who learned, not through caution, but by embracing pain? Vannon finally spoke. We cannot defeat them through conventional means. They will endure longer than we can break them. Zur exhaled sharply. Then we change our approach. If humans could not be broken through brute force, then the Dominion would have to dismantle them another way. A new strategy was needed, one that attacked not their bodies, but their very nature. Psychological warfare. Humans thrived in adversity. But what if their very beliefs, the foundation of their unity, were called into question? The Dominion broadcasted falsified reports, claiming humanity's greatest warriors had surrendered, that their leaders had abandoned them. They doctored intercepted transmissions, inserting subtle distortions to seed doubt. They fabricated footage of betrayals, commanders turning against their own in moments of weakness. But the humans did not break. They laughed. The Olin analysts were dumbfounded. The humans took the altered broadcasts and created their own versions, mocking the Dominion's deception with crude humor. What was intended to shatter their morale only strengthened it. They treated war like a puzzle, a challenge to be overcome through sheer force of will. So the Dominion escalated. They cut supply lines, starved them of resources, besieged outposts. Other species would have surrendered under such conditions. The humans adapted. When food ran scarce, they ate things Olin soldiers would consider toxic. When water was contaminated, they devised new filtration methods on the spot. When medical supplies dwindled, they performed surgeries on one another, without hesitation, without fear. The Dominion's attempt to wear them down only exposed another terrifying truth. Humans were most dangerous when cornered. Then, Marcus Hale resurfaced. The Dominion tracked him to a derelict station on the outskirts of human-controlled space. This time, they sent an entire strike force, 12 elite operatives, enhanced with the finest Dominion technology. The battle should have lasted seconds. It raged for hours. Hale fought like something out of a nightmare, dodging with impossible precision, countering every strategy. His suit was torn, his face bloodied, but he never stopped. He used the station itself as a weapon, turning the environment against his attackers. The final blow came when an operative managed to drive a blade straight through his abdomen. A fatal strike. Any other being would have crumpled. Hale only looked down at the wound, exhaled sharply, then grabbed his attacker's wrist and shattered it. In one motion, he wrenched the blade free and drove it into his enemy's throat. The remaining operatives fled. Zur watched the footage in stunned silence. There was only one conclusion. We leave them alone. The war was over. Not because the Dominion had won, but because they knew they never could. And across the void, Marcus Hale sat quietly in a military station, staring at the stars. He smiled, because someone, somewhere, would challenge humanity again. And he would be ready,